Hello, everyone, and welcome. I am Bethany Peebles. I am the Executive Director of the Consultation Department here at Art Optical, and want to thank you all for joining us tonight for the second event of our four-part specialty lens education series. Before we get started, I want to draw everyone's attention to the chat window. That's where we're going to ask that if you have any questions throughout the presentation, that you go ahead and put your questions there in the chat feature. We are going to try and answer a few of those at the end of the evening. If we aren't able to get to your question, we will respond to you personally. And with that, I'm going to go ahead and pass this off to our featured presenter, Dr. Stephanie Wu.
Thank you, Bethany, and thank you so much to Art Optical for this amazing opportunity. It's always fun to partner with them and on these really fun topics. So tonight's topic is such a hot topic in the industry. It's orthokeratology. And I think it's going to be really fun to talk about more of the practice management considerations. There's a lot of free, really great webinars and resources out there that kind of talk about the fitting philosophy and different tips on troubleshooting, things like that. But this is more geared for how to get things implemented into practice, what needs to be included in a contract, why is myopia control even important? So I'm really excited to present this information this evening. And I do want to say thank you to Dr. Ariel Sorenzi. I borrowed some of her slides. She had such a beautiful presentation on myopia management and was generous enough to allow me to borrow some of her slides. My name is Dr. Stephanie Wu. I am a graduate from SCCO and I completed a cornea and contact lens residency at the University of Missouri, St. Louis. I owned 3 private practices in Arizona and California. And in those practices, we did not have any specialty lenses. But with my background and my passion for specialty contacts, I was able to grow the specialty lens population from 0 to over 1,000 patients in a 5-year period. I've presented lots of CE on the topic of specialty contact lenses, and to date we've got over 2,000, it's actually up to 2,500 plus specialty lens patients. I am the founder of the Contact Lens Institute of Nevada. It's a really unique clinic because all I do are specialty lenses. I don't do any primary care anymore. I don't have an optical, so it's purely dedicated to specialty lenses. And I'm also the founder of Wu University, and it's super exciting. We've had a lot of great educational events, you know, including this one, partnering with Art Optical. It's been really amazing. So super excited to be with you guys tonight. So this was a slide that was actually presented at the Global Specialty Lens Symposium meeting by Dr. Ed Bennett. And every year, Dr. Bennett goes through and he kind of interviews or does some kind of research on what are some of the biggest advancements in gas permeable lenses. And so he asked the GPLI advisory board, and so about 50 doctors responded. These are key opinion leaders within the industry. And he asked them, what do you think are some of the biggest advancements in GP lenses this last year? And as you can see, not only was stable wettable materials a hot topic, but also topography assisted lens designs, new disinfection, and you can see there on the last one, introduction of modern orthokeratology lens designs. So in the whole world of specialty contacts and kind of polling some of these key opinion leaders, they really feel that modern ortho-K designs are really some of the biggest advancements in the entire industry. Myopia management's a really hot topic. These are just a few of some of the papers that I really like. You can find all of these on PubMed, but basically myopia and orthokeratology has been a hot topic for a long time, and some of the most recent research is kind of talking about myopia and why that is important. Who cares? If somebody gets myopic, what's the big deal? And that's what we're going to go over next. So why should we go into myopia management? So going through the code of ethics as far as optometry goes, The Code of Ethics says to keep patients' eye, vision, and general health paramount at all times. So it really is our responsibility as eye care practitioners to let parents and the general public know about all their different options. It can become a profit source and revenue generator within your own practice. And it just gives you kind of a niche, something in your practice that maybe a lot of other doctors currently don't have or have no desire to manage. Let's define myopia. Anything over negative 0.5 diopters is considered myopic, and anything greater than -5 is considered high myopia. Now pay attention to that number because that's going to come up in some of the upcoming slides. High myopia is linked to a lot of risk factors for certain eye diseases, which is why that number is so important. And I don't know about you guys, but in my practice, I have tons of patients that are much higher than -5. High myopia is becoming such a large part of people's clinics as myopia progresses and becomes more of an epidemic. And so we have to keep thinking in the back of our minds, how can we help slow this down? What are some of the possible effects of high myopia? And some of these other really important questions. Let's talk about the prevalence. So there's about 28% of the population globally that are myopic and 4% that are highly myopic, going back to some of the ways that we defined that. So almost 2 billion people in the world have myopia, and of those, almost a billion people have, or 930 million people have high myopia. So this is really, really important because this shows us that myopia is prevalent worldwide. Now, let's see how things change as we kind of go through the globe. So going back to our statistics here of myopia and high myopia, in East Asian countries, about 80 to 90% actually have myopia, which is a huge amount. And 10 to 20% of those people have sight-threatening pathologies. So this is really something that is concerning. Let's look at the United States. In 2010, 30% of adults had myopia, and in 2050, it's estimated to be more than 50%. Myopic children, so between 11 and 13 years old, in 1994, 12% of children in that age bracket were myopic, and in 2013, 50%. So this just shows you that myopia is definitely increasing. Over time, if we look at all of the different studies that have been done, even doing some of the peer-reviewed research where they're looking at retrospective studies, it really is showing that myopia is a concern. This is something that's not going away. In fact, it's getting worse. Now, this is where I think a lot of doctors or even parents and the general public say, you know, that's fine. You know, I just get stronger glasses each year. I get stronger contacts each year. I don't know why it really matters. So I think that this is something that is incredibly important to talk to parents and the general public about. So look at this chart. The ocular disease that is associated with myopia significantly increases as your myopia worsens. So you can see in that -2 category, the worst thing I think out of all of these is the myopic maculopathy, because that is really, really, really blinding. So if you go from -2 with a 2.2 times risk all the way up to greater than -8, now you're 126 times more at risk, and that is huge. Retinal detachment, 44 times. Cataract, glaucoma, I mean, it's just so much of this is associated with myopia, and that is such a message that I think is really getting out there. A lot of CE events and articles are really showing that a lot of these scary eye diseases are associated with higher amounts of myopia. Myopic macular degeneration, so scary. Nobody wants to get this. This is, one of the worst things that you can get for your vision. Slowing myopia progression by 1 diopter reduces the risk of myopic maculopathy by 40%. That is a huge number. Think about that. If you could slow and reduce your risk of myopic maculopathy by slowing down myopia, that is huge, not only for patients, but for their children or family members that have myopia. And then let's look at it compared to the ARED study, which shows a 25% reduced risk for advanced macular degeneration with 6 years of supplementation. So both of these are macular issues, but see how effective some of this myopic progression can be affected by slowing it down and how it can really affect the macula. Quality of life is also an important thing to consider. Let's look at this picture. In year 1, if a child has a little bit of myopia, they can still see the kid's head in front of them and the other kids' heads, and they can see the teacher. The stuff on the board is pretty blurry, but you can see that there are characters written out. Year 2, you can still kind of see things are there, but things are a lot blurrier, and you definitely can't see anything on the board besides a little bit of a color distinction. Year 3, everything is really blurry, and year 4, even worse. Everything is just a complete blur. So imagine if you have a child and you can keep them in that kind of year 1 type of vision, or year 2, their vision quality is going to be much better than this child that has had no myopia intervention and their vision is incredibly blurry. Why else does it matter? Well, we don't know what kids want to be when they grow up. There's a lot of careers that require the patient to have a certain prescription, or they can't have refractive surgery, things like that. So we don't know what type of vision that child is going to need for whatever career they choose. Also, if the patient does want to get refractive surgery in the future, as we know as optometrists, there's a lot of things that happen with some of these higher prescriptions. A lot of people are just not good candidates anymore if their prescription is too high. They would simply have to burn off too much tissue. So you're really helping some of the patients that maybe they want to get refractive surgery when they're an adult and they don't want to wear glasses or contacts anymore. Well, if they're a -12, that's really going to limit their options, and I know most surgeons will not operate on somebody that high. So I think that's also something that we need to consider as their overall quality of life. And if any of you have a myopia to any extent, waking up in the middle of the night and you don't have your contacts or glasses around, you're looking around, you don't know what time it is. If you have to walk to the bathroom or walk to the kitchen, you're fumbling around, you don't know where you're going. And that's really kind of goes to talk about the functional vision of myopia. So it's incredibly important that we tell patients about the options and reduce the amount that we can, as much as we can. So the risk factor of refractive error is the best single predictor of future myopia. It is much more powerful than genetics, near work, and other risk factors. Those are all still important to consider in the whole grand scheme of things, but the refractive error is something that I want you guys to remember. That is the #1 single best predictor of future myopia. Here is an interesting graph. It's showing you the refractive threshold for risk of myopia development. So at age 6, if you have a child that is less than plus 0.75, they are at risk. And look at this, age 11, basically, if they've already developed myopia before age 11, they're pretty much going to keep progressing year after year. Genetics also play a role. If you have a parent, one parent that has myopia and the other one that doesn't, the child is 2 times greater risk. If both parents have myopia, 5 times greater risk. Urban living, which a lot of you guys listening in probably live in these bigger cities, 2.6% increased risk. Indoor time. If a child spends less than 13 hours a week of outdoor time, there is a higher odds ratio of incident myopia. Also, there's lots of different other studies where people are doing lots of research. So what about vitamin D? What about bright light? What about physical activity? What about reduced amount of near work? What are all of these different things and how do they relate to myopia and the progression? So lots of studies going on right now kind of analyzing all of these different components and risk factors. Education and near work, this is a real thing. This is in China, Taiwan, where these kids have these little bars where they cannot go further to do their near work because they are so worried about these kids developing myopia, and especially high myopia. They're trying to do anything they can to make sure that the kid is not getting too close. And how many of you guys have kids that are on the phone, on the iPad, holding their little book right here when they're reading? So this is something real, not really common in the US, but it is something that's very common in the Asian population and countries. So this is something interesting. In 2020, 87% of the world's student population was in home confinement. You know, with the pandemic going on, a lot of people ended up having to homeschool their kids. Their schools were all online. So these kids were not at school. They weren't getting recess. They weren't in PE for the most part. They're on the computer watching things, you know, 12 inches away or more or less, depending on their work environment. So I think that this is something that is really going to show us interesting data as we kind of go through the rest of the years and see what that does as far as myopia. And as far as we know, it seems like this will probably be another risk factor for myopia and progression. So what are the current myopia management options? Well, there's glasses. There's a few companies that have some designs. You may have seen some studies done where they analyzed progressive glasses compared to some of the other modalities. There's also atropine, another hot topic, lots of research on that, different formulations, different ways that they were instilling the drops. You know, was it every day? Was it once a week? Was it twice a month? What percentage was it? So they have a lot of interesting data on myopia, progression, and atropine. There's orthokeratology, which you see on the right-hand side. And then there's also soft contact lens options. And those work in a variety of different ways, depending on the company and the lens design. So there are different ways to manage myopia. Specifically, we're going to talk about orthokeratology. So orthokeratology reduces myopia progression by slowing axial length. A lot of the research before was saying, well, we know that orthokeratology works, but we don't know how. And when they started measuring axial length, so how long the eyeball is growing, that's what determines how much myopia a patient has. So if you can reduce myopia progression by reducing and slowing axial length, and in orthokeratology specifically by slightly less than 50%, which is a huge amount, and then it ranges between 41 to 45%. And this is in case parents ask, you know, how much can I expect my child's myopia to reduce by? So orthokeratology remains a very effective way to slow down myopia progression. The way it works is you've got a base curve that's flatter, and then you've got these kind of areas in the mid-periphery that kind of change the shape and structure of the fluid in the corneal tissue. And what you end up with is a pattern like we see in this topography, where you get flattening in the middle of the eye, in the middle of the cornea, and you get steepening in that mid-peripheral area. So it looks very similar when I look at this. It looks very similar to me like almost a post-refractive surgery patient. A lot of my LASIK patients look the same way. The beauty of orthokeratology is that it's non-surgical and it's completely reversible. And I think a lot of parents, that really helps when you're explaining orthokeratology and some of the benefits. The fact that, you know, if they decide that it's not for them and it's not for their children after the first year or a few years, they can just stop wearing the lenses and their child's eye will bounce back to its normal shape. So very safe and effective treatment option. This is a really interesting photo, just kind of showing orthokeratology mechanism of action is for that peripheral defocus. And as you can see with the myopia control design, that mid-peripheral area is definitely, it's closer to the central pupil. And compared to an adult ortho-K design where you don't want to make that zone really small as far as in that center optic zone, you want that a little bit larger. So this is just a really interesting photo kind of showing different myopia designs, ortho-K designs based off of it's a child. Are you trying to reduce the amount of myopia, or are you an adult and are you just using it as almost like an alternative to refractive surgery? Other benefits of orthokeratology is that it sets your practice apart. A lot of doctors do not want to get involved with orthokeratology. Most doctors don't even want to get involved with gas permeable lenses. So if it's something, you guys are on this call, if this is something that you want to do, you already have taken more steps and more action than most eye doctors. Most eye doctors don't want to do this. So anybody listening in, you should think to yourself, wow, there are not a lot of doctors doing this. There are not a lot of doctors that want to be involved with orthokeratology. So you will have the upper hand when it comes to this amazing technology. It also builds really loyal patients. Patients that have a doctor that has some sort of a specialty in contact lenses for sure, gain trust. They know that not every doctor down the street offers this type of service. There's only a few doctors that offer this type of design that are skilled in this design and know what they're doing. So if you get this patient, you're going to have them for life. And it also helps to increase practice profitability. This is something really important for some of you guys that are listening. You might own your own practice, or maybe you're paid on production. So the more money you can generate for the practice, the better it is for really everybody. And so if it's something that you're looking to stand out and you're looking for another source of revenue within your practice, orthokeratology can definitely be that. Okay, so now we've kind of gone over all of the myopia control, the ortho-K, why, you know, we need to be practicing myopia control and stopping the progression of myopia. So now you're saying, okay, Dr. Wu, I am in, I want to do this, I need to start offering this to my patients. How do I start? What is the first thing that I need to do? Well, you need to get certified. So for the vision shaping treatment, VST, you've got to get MONLENS certified. This is easily done through Art Optical, and they can probably send you a link to that certification. So you need to get certified first so that you understand the process. You need to understand the different indications, and all of that is incredibly important and valuable. So you'll need to get certified on the MONLENS. And you might be asking, well, do I need to buy and invest in a diagnostic set? This was something that I had when I was a resident. I had this giant diagnostic set. Half of the lenses were missing, and I was like, okay, what do I do here? And so during my residency, somebody wants to do myopia control. Okay, great. So we get out our little calculator, we figure out what their prescription is, what their Ks are, things like that, and then it tells us which lens to use. So you would have to pick a lens out of this kit that you're seeing here and put that on the patient's eye. And if it looked like a good match, then you go with that lens. Then ideally, you call the lab and then you reorder the that lens and put it back in. But as many of you guys are probably thinking, well, gee, then you have to like keep buying more and more lenses, and every time you sell one, then you got to put one here. And then what happens if the next patient needs the exact same lens? Well, now you're out of luck because it's already gone. Plus, these are really expensive. That was the main reason when I first got into practice. I was like, ooh, like I just, you know, I'm just starting out in practice. I just can't afford to invest in this really, really big diagnostic set. So that's really what kind of held me back in the beginning. The great news is with the MONLENS and some of these other Ortho-K designs, it's exciting because you really can do this diagnostically. Look at the things that you need. Keratometry values or topography if you have one. You need manifest refraction, and that's it. If you have HVID information, and you can even do like the handheld ones if you just don't have any of the fancy equipment, and eccentricity values if you do have a topographer, that will make things even more customized for the patient, but you really don't need much. You can order the MONLENS empirically, which is, I think, one of the main selling points. For me as a practitioner, I just simply don't have the investment to invest in a gigantic diagnostic set that I'm going to have to keep constantly replacing over and over again. And this gives me a super easy way to just plug in the numbers and let everything else take place from there. So you basically can use this calculator, the MONLENS calculator. You put in their prescription, the diameter, optic zone you can change if you need to, putting in the eccentricity, the values of the Ks, and then it kind of gives you the results. If you're not happy with the results or you have some questions, things like that, please reach out to the consultation team. That's what they're there for. I don't think practitioners use consultants enough. You have to remember that the consultants, they see hundreds of these things per week. That is way more than any of us will probably do in like our whole career, maybe. You need to use these consultants because they know the lens design the best and they want to help you. So if you put in the information and the results and you're like, I'm not really sure if I am liking that, or you have a specific question, or there's something weird about the patient that you want to tell the lab about, please reach out to them because they are the ones that have dealt with the same patient that you possibly are asking them about. They've probably already seen 100 just like them. So definitely take it to your advantage to use the consultants. Now your next question might be, okay, so I don't need a diagnostic fitting set. Hooray, that's awesome. But how do I find these myopic patients? So in your practice, most of you are practicing and you probably are seeing a lot of patients on a daily basis for comprehensive exams. This is the single best opportunity. They're already in your chair, and I bet a lot of you guys are seeing a child, chief complaint, can't see the board. Okay, we see that a million times a day. Can't see the board, little Johnny can't see. Okay, let's check. We find, okay, little Johnny's a -1, whatever. Here's your glasses prescription, go to the optical. Okay, great. But now we need to start this conversation early. So that is going to be some of the main people that you are going to be able to deliver this information to. So basically, you do your annual exam and you find out that little Johnny is starting to develop myopia. So you say something like, Mrs. Smith, it looks like Johnny has developed nearsightedness. Let's go over all of your options. And most practitioners, myself included, when I first started practicing, would just say, he's got glasses, he's going to need to wear them all the time, and let's go get him some glasses. But now what I have started to say is, hey, Mrs. Smith, with Johnny, he's got something called nearsightedness. And a lot of times the parents, they already know what that is. Half of them or more are already wearing glasses as well, so they already know. And we say, we've got a couple options for you. He can wear glasses, he can wear contacts, or we can get him into myopia control. Those are three things that you just say right off the bat, because what's the next thing the parent's going to ask you? What's myopia control? Then that is what opens the whole door of explaining what myopia control is and why the parents should care. So I like to show them a calculator. I like to say, here's where Johnny is now, and if we just went with glasses, here's where he's going to be at age 17. So basically, we just plug this into the calculator. This is from the Brian Holden Vision Institute. It's free. I love using this. I have no financial interest in that company. But basically, you put in the child's ethnicity, their age, the current refractive error, and then the myopia management option. So let's say orthokeratology. It automatically says the control rate of about 43% based off of peer-reviewed literature, like we saw in some of the previous slides. And then it just shows you. So this is such a good visual for parents to see, because they look at this and they say, huh, okay, let's look at the red. He's 8 years old, he's a -1, and he's going to get to about -4, a little bit more at age 17. If we end up doing orthokeratology now, then he might only be -2.8, so about almost half. So that's important to show them a visual of, this is where your child's at, this is where they're probably going to end up if we don't do anything, or if we basically just do glasses. And here's where they're going to end up more likely if we do some sort of management option. So this is the first thing I show parents. Then the next question is, well, okay, I understand, if Johnny does just glasses, he's just going to have a higher prescription. Why does that matter? Can't we just get glasses every year? Can't you just make them thicker and thicker and thicker? And that's the second part of this, is that you have to talk to parents about why managing the myopia is important. So I tell parents, yes, I can make Johnny's glasses thicker and thicker and thicker and thicker every year. That is true. We could do that. But the issue is the eye diseases. I go through that first. I talk to them about all the eye diseases and the risk factors. So the chart that I showed you earlier, I show that to the parents and I say, your child is more at risk for these things: retinal detachments, glaucoma, myopic macular degeneration. These are potentially blinding eye conditions. So if you can do something now that could prevent them from having this disease or this potentially blinding disorder when they're an adult, don't you think we should intervene now while he's young and he's got a chance? The next thing I talk to them about is career options. I say, Mrs. Smith, Johnny's only 8 and we don't know what he wants to be when he grows up. And what if he needs to have a certain amount of vision in order to have that specific career? What if he wants to have refractive surgery in the future? If he wants to get LASIK or PRK or whatever the other things that are going on right now. If he wants to get that, he might not be a candidate if his prescription gets too high. And then also loss of functional vision. I just kind of go through, especially if the parent has thick glasses or if they see you as their eye doctor as well. You can say, yeah, Mrs. Smith, you know, think about when you wake up in the middle of the night and you're fumbling around for your glasses, you can't see anything. So imagine that same type of vision for Johnny. He's not going to be able to see the alarm clock. He's not going to be able to walk to the bathroom without fumbling around. Definitely more potential to trip on something, fall. I mean, there's a lot of issues that go on when you have functional vision loss. So the main key is telling patients or parents why myopia is a concern and basically how the patient's going to progress, and then talking to them about these key points. Why does it matter if myopia gets worse? Well, these are the reasons. You don't want your child to have this debilitating eye disease when they're older. So if we can do anything to help prevent that, I think we should explore that option. So now let's go through kind of the exam flow. So if you've got an existing patient and let's say they say, all right, Dr. Wu, I want to do it. Okay, so all we need is a topography. We need their manifest refraction. I do axial length, but because I don't have, I'm a new business, I have a lot of startup costs, purchasing an axial length machine was not in my budget. It might be in yours, but for me, it just wasn't. So I just refer those out to a local cataract surgeon, and I just have them do like an A scan or an IOL master on them. And that way I don't have to have that cost personally of this massive investment. And I just send the patient off, they get the scan, it's very inexpensive. And then we go through the lens agreement. So that's going to outline the time frame, and I'm going to go over everything that needs to be in that agreement in a second. If it's a new patient, you would probably end up doing their full exam. You still need to have their keratometry values or their topography. You still have to have their manifest refraction. Axial length is the reason it's a question mark is because you can still do orthokeratology and myopia management without axial length, but I think that it's good information to have so that you can monitor the progression and see kind of how they're doing 6 months out. And then, of course, reviewing the lens agreement again. Some scheduling tips for you guys. If it's a patient, let's say the word's gotten out, you've done a few, you've got some under your belt, and now the word is starting to spread. So now the patients call and they say, oh yeah, I heard that Dr. Wu has this special type of contact lens that can slow down the glasses or whatever terms they use. Great. I booked them out for a 10 to 15 minute consult. Basically, I go over everything I just showed you. We put in the calculator where the patient's prescription's at now and where it's going to be when they're 17. I go over all the reasons why we should try to slow down the myopia, and then I kind of review the process. You might have questions on the consultation. Should it be free or should we be charging for that visit? That is really up to you. There's doctors that have done things that are very successful that do free consults. For me personally, in my experience, I was having a lot of no-shows, and I think it's just because if it's free, then there's not much risk. You know, if the patient just doesn't show up, who cares? And that 10-minute slot was really valuable. That's a lot of time out of my schedule if a lot of people are no-showing. So we started charging a nominal fee for the consultation, and we would just apply that fee to the program if they ended up proceeding. If you are very serious about this, if you're like, I am all in, I am doing this, I am doing orthokeratology tomorrow, something that I would recommend is blocking out a specific time during the week. Here's an example. From 11:45 to 12 p.m. every Tuesday that's only myopia management consults. Because what will happen is if you're not super serious and you just kind of put them in wherever, the staff will just start booking things, other things, you know, this person needs a pressure check, this one's got a glasses check. And so that time slot, it doesn't get filled with actual myopia management consults. So if you are really serious about this, I would highly recommend saying, all right, I'm going to pick a 10-minute slot or a 15-minute slot in my weekly schedule, and the only patient that can go there is a myopia management consult. Because what's going to happen, especially if you own your own practice, is if you see that that is not getting filled week after week, you're going to do more marketing, you're going to figure out a way, you're going to talk to more parents, you're going to do something to make sure that that slot gets filled. So at the dispense visit, these are just some things that that we'll just kind of go over like a brief thing of what we need here. So you'll put the lenses on. I like to use anesthetic, especially if it's a little kid and they're really, really scared of everything. I put the sodium fluorescein in. Then we take some images and photos, check the fit, we check the vision, we do an over-refraction, and then we do their insertion removal training. 1-day follow-up, action items, they come in wearing the lenses. In my case, I like to see them after that first night. Other doctors that are more experienced with, they've done it for 25 plus years, they're like, forget it. They could just come in without the lenses on. This is totally up to you. I prefer having the lenses, having them wear them in just so I can reassess the fit again, and then I will remove them and then do the other testing. Other doctors, they just tell them to show up in the morning without the lenses on. Totally up to you. But because I have the patients wearing the lenses in, I check the vision with their lenses, I check the fit with sodium fluorescein, take the lenses off, check their vision again, do an over-refraction, and then do a topography. Make sure, if you are using a topography, that you are checking the tangential curvature and power maps. Some people get this really confused and they're accidentally looking at the axial maps because most topographers are kind of set to that view as a default, and you may not get a real clear understanding of what's going on. So make sure when you are checking, you're using the tangential curvature and power maps. Then I always give them some soft contact lenses, some dailies to use during this adaptation period over the next week, because after the first day, it may only last a couple hours. And then 2 days, it might last a little bit more. With kids, they can accommodate really well depending on, you know, their prescription, and you can just have them wear their glasses during that first week. That just really depends on what their prescription is starting off and how old the child is. This is so cool. I love looking at the topography maps and kind of showing the difference. So you can see exam A is the patient before we started orthokeratology, and then exam B showing, I think that's a 1-week follow-up. And then you can see on the big side here on the right-hand side, it's showing exam A or exam B minus A, and that just shows us how much of a power in that bottom right that we are getting. So really interesting data from these topographers so that you can see if the treatment's working and if there's any problems. After a 1-week follow-up, I would check their vision again, do an over-refraction, repeat the topography, check their difference maps, and then check their corneal health. In this patient in particular, she had a little bit of staining, and so we just had to change her care system. We kind of reviewed a few things with her and gave her some artificial tears to use during the day. 1 month follow-up, you will check the vision without lenses, do the over-refraction again, repeat topography, check the difference maps again, and check their corneal health. If you have problems, so this is one of our patients, and I was like, okay, well, there's some bubbles there in that mid-peripheral zone. Is that normal? Do not feel dumb calling them. I call them all the time. Bethany can attest to that. I call them and email them everything. If I have video files, if I have topographies, if I have pictures, they're getting all of it because I want them to be able to see exactly what I'm seeing. So if you have problems or you don't know, you look at this and say, is this okay to dispense? I'm not sure. Send them these pictures, send them these videos, call them, and they're so happy to help you navigate this, especially if you're new at it and you're not sure. Last thing I want to talk about is the contact lens agreement, which is a must. You absolutely need to have this before you start jumping into myopia management. You need to have everything written out so that everybody is on the same page. These are the things that you need to include in your agreement. You've got to have the date that the service starts and ends. That way, everybody's on the same page. The last thing you want to get yourself into is some sort of situation where the patient's calling in month 4, let's say you do a 90-day. I don't know what people, whatever you want to do. But let's say they're after that period, and then they're coming in again, and then they're coming in again, and they're coming in again. So it can really eat into your chair time and the costs. You also want to have an outline of the treatment program, basically saying, this is what will happen at the consult visit. This is what is going to happen at the dispense visit. This is what's going to happen on day 1. That way they're all fully aware. This is not just a lens that you order, they take it home, and you never see them again. There is a treatment program, and it needs to be specifically outlined so that the parents are aware of the time commitment, when they need to come back in, what is going to be happening during those visits, how long are those appointments going to be, how long can the parent and the patient expect to be there. You also need to go into the cost of the service and the materials. Some people just package it as one program. Other people split it up between service and materials. And then what's covered, meaning if you have a red eye in month 6, is that covered, or would that be considered an emergency medical visit and you're using their medical insurance? What happens if the lens breaks in month 3? What happens then? What happens if the lens gets scratched in month 6? All of this stuff needs to be outlined so that everybody's crystal clear. You need to put the risk factors in. This is something that I think a lot of doctors might forget, but you need to have some sort of written contract saying these are the things that could happen with any contact lens wearer. So you might already have this in your existing contact lens agreement for soft contacts. Just kind of add those in here, maybe change it a little bit to comply with the Ortho-K. The refund and cancellation policy, incredibly important. You have to have this in there. What happens if little Johnny ends up hating the lenses? They can't get him in, he rubs them out every night, it's just not working out. Whatever the reason is, the dog ate the lenses, they don't want to replace it. Johnny doesn't want to do it. The parents don't want to be involved. Whatever the problem is, you have to have that written out in writing that says exactly what's going to happen if for some reason this doesn't work out. Are you going to refund the service fees? Are you refunding material fees? Do they just, if you're doing a program, kind of a global package, how much are they getting back, if anything? So that's going to be up to you. If you've got a payment plan in there, maybe put that in your agreement. And if there's any sort of insurance coverage. The Moon Lens itself, there's like a ton of practice management materials that are totally available to you for free. So if I know a lot of people are probably asking in the chat box right now, do you have a sample agreement? Here it is. Ask Art Optical. Once you get Moon Lens certified, they will send you this. It's a whole kit of amazing stuff that ensures that you are successful. How do you structure your fees? Keep in mind, I'm not recommending specific dollar amounts. Every doctor and every practice is completely different and unique. I am not recommending anything specifically. This is directly from some of that practice management package from Moon Lens, but according to the ADA, the Dental Association, parents spend about $5,000 to $6,000 on comprehensive orthodontic treatment. And you may have heard of orthokeratology lenses, also referred to as retainers. A lot of doctors don't call them contact lenses, they call them retainers. And it is very similar as far as orthodontics go, very similar. So that just kind of could give you, I guess, an estimate of kind of what's involved. If you've got kids or you yourself had braces, you kind of know what was involved, what was involved as far as the amount of visits, the time, the knowledge that goes into it, the staff involvement. So you can kind of compare that to orthokeratology and kind of how much time you're going to be spending with those patients, and then develop a structure and a fee structure that is more in line with your specific practice. Other marketing tips: word of mouth is always going to be the best referral source. This is something that comes up over and over and over again at a lot of these orthokeratology meetings. The website, you've got to have some sort of information on the website that you are practicing orthokeratology or that you are offering the MONLENS in your practice. That's super important, so that if patients forget or they want to look it up, they can just easily refer to your website for more information. SEO is huge in digital marketing. Social media ads, Google ads with those keywords: orthokeratology, myopia management, nighttime contact lenses. Those types of things are all keywords that you should be targeting. Informative handouts. So another great thing, the MONLENS marketing package, you get a lot of these things for free that you can print out and give out to patients. You can also consider a co-management program. This was an idea that was given to me by a good friend, Dr. Tan Mai. He is a schoolmate of mine, and he has a really thriving ortho-K practice now in Southern California. And he does something where if a practitioner refers a patient, he does orthokeratology, and then he co-manages with that doctor to check the patient's eye health, make sure everything's okay at 6-month intervals. And then, of course, they still see them for all their comprehensive exams. So that's something that has worked out really well for me in particular as well. Lots of marketing tools. There's social media stuff that you can do if you're trying to blast this out to your social media networks. There's website banners for your website. There's patient brochures if you want to give them more information. You know, if they come in and they're just recently diagnosed and it's too overwhelming, they can't think about it all, they want to get more information, giving them some of these brochures can really help. This is another great thing. So referral forms, you can print this out and hand these out to other doctors. They could just fax these back to you. So just some pearls that I want to end with. Make sure your staff are really well informed. This needs to be something that they are aware that you're doing. You don't want somebody calling your practice and saying, hey, do you guys do those nighttime contacts that like help so that Johnny doesn't need glasses? The worst thing that can happen is the practice, the person that's answering says, you know, I'm not sure, hold on. Because think about that. They say, I'm not sure, let me go ask the doctor. That really does not reflect well on you as the doctor and the practice. Making sure that you're discussing myopia management options with all potential patients. So start getting that in your head. Okay, every time I see a kid that has myopia, I'm going to bring this up as a potential option. Digital marketing, super important. Make sure that your website, your SEO, your social media are optimized. Using consultants as much as possible. Like I said, these people have way more experience than you or I in these types of lenses. Please use them because they are the true expert in the lens design, and their goal is to help you. Contracts, absolutely cannot stress this enough. You have to have something in writing so that everybody is super crystal clear. And practice, you might think, gee, I don't even really know where to start. If you want to do this, it's absolutely possible. You've seen in this presentation how many amazing resources there are that are at your disposal, and the lab Art Optical is so excited to help you. This is something that you want to do. There's absolutely no barrier to doing this. And with that, I would like to say thanks. I'm going to take a few questions after the next couple slides. I will turn this over to Bethany for the last closing comments before we get to some questions.
Thanks, Dr. Wu. So just real quickly, I know we are kind of running out of time here, and I definitely want to get to everyone's questions as much as we can. So, but I want to say, you know, we certainly understand that the specialty lens lab that you choose to work with is really important. So I want to share just a couple of things about Art Optical. We are 100% focused on specialty lenses. All of our lenses are custom made to order for your specific patient. We are the leading independent custom lens lab in the US, and we've been doing this for over 60 years, manufacturing custom contact lenses. So you can be really confident in the experience of our team. And I think that longevity and that success really has to do with the fact that quality is always a priority. So we are ISO certified, and we have been for 20 years, and we are MDSAP registered. And that may not necessarily mean a lot to everyone, but really that just means that we follow really stringent guidelines. So also MONLENS, as Dr. Wu had shared about, that is, we are the exclusive manufacturer in the US of MONLENS. And there's a lot of unique features to the MONLENS design. It's been a really exciting design to work with. And just want to share that it has an exceptional warranty program, and we ship within 24 hours. And again, use our consultation department. We are so happy to help you. We are successful when you are successful. So please feel free to reach out to us. But just want to thank everyone for joining us tonight. We do have 2 more sessions in this 4-part series, so please join us for those. The next session is on April 21st. Dr. Wu, thank you very much for putting that up there. She is going to focus specifically on scleral lenses. As a fellow and past president of the Scleral Lens Society and a very successful ampullae fitter, she's going to share all of her expertise with you. So it's going to be a very exciting presentation. So please join us, and thank you everyone for being here tonight, and enjoy the rest of your evening.